Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Wine from On the Vine to the Road Tasted. You guys know the bit. I'm Brian.
And I'm Jasmine.
And there's
Hello.
Jasmine. Yeah, she's sitting to my
Hey,
right
everybody.
now. Yeah, sitting to my right. She's got a new microphone. Hoping
So
this works
excited.
out. Yeah. We're gonna see if
Tech
this
is
works
growing.
out. Yeah, our tech is growing slowly. $30 at a time.
Hey, it's something. It's a start.
Yeah, but let's see. This week's episode is about a wine from the winemaker chose this wine, or the vines from both the Sierra Foothills and Sonoma Valley. So it's a Vermilion.
69% Sierra Foothills and then 31% Sonoma County blend.
What are the percentages again?
69 and 31.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I heard it right.
69%, yes.
Okay.
And 31.
And 31%. Okay.
Yeah, the
All right.
majority was 69.
So on a personal note, we were driving up Highway 74 the other day. We live in Palm Springs, in the Palm Springs area, and then there's a street that goes, or it's a highway that goes up Highway 74. And Jasmine has a spoiled little car, has like 3 modes: eco mode, which I don't think we've ever used, and then we got sports mode, and then what's the other one? It's like a comfort mode.
Yeah,
Or
there's comfort mode.
economy.
It's economy, comfort, like a
yeah.
soft ride, and then you got sports mode.
Yeah, so we're mostly in a comfort mode, but we went up Highway 74. In my head, I'm like, okay, Jasmine wasn't feeling too good the other day. Her stomach hurt. And I'm going up Highway 74 and taking turns at 60 miles an hour. Yeah, taking it easy, yeah. And then
That's taking it easy.
and then I'm worried about her, and then she turns over and she goes from comfort mode, she turns it into sport mode. And I'm just like, okay, I think she's fine.
That's why you love me so much.
Yeah, she likes those heavy turns. She really does. So
It's hard to grip the road.
yeah, it's a fun ride. I had a client, and he said he drove up Highway 74, and he was so scared. He almost called me to drive him down because it scared him so much. It's a 2-lane road, and you're going up.
It was in a movie. What was the movie back in the? There was a movie that's an older movie that the highway was in.
I don't remember.
It's like famed in this movie.
Is it?
Yeah. Or Highway 74.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask my parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I know Highway 86.
Their generation will know.
Highway 86 was in the first.
They had a whole movie based on this road, and you see it like they're filming it.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Oh.
It's called something around the world, or I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I know Highway.
1950s or 1960s movie, something like that.
So probably a James Dean inspired.
That era.
Yeah. I know Highway 86,
Your
which is
parents will know
right
it.
outside of Coachella Valley, was the first. What's that one with Vin Diesel and Paul Walker?
You mean
The Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious?
Yeah, it was
How
the
could I
first.
forget that?
Yeah, the first Fast and Furious movie was.
Paul Walker
Highway
was
86.
also a what is he called? He was a promoter and for shark conservation.
Oh.
So he was
okay.
all into the great whites. I used to watch this expedition called the Great White Expedition, and Paul Walker was a part of that. And it was during the time he was making the movies Fast and Furious.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool.
I just thought it was really neat and then I attached a Jasmine's turning it to sport mode. I was talking about this movie I watched with John LaRoquette when I was a kid. It was in 1990.
In Kirstie Alley?
Yeah, in Kirstie Alley. A Madhouse, I think is what it was called, or something.
Bad
like,
House.
Yeah, it was called a Madhouse.
You said it was the same time period that made the Money Pit.
Yeah, the Money Pit
Shirley
was
Long
made like in
and Tom
86,
Hanks,
and then a Madhouse came out in 1990. It's a similar premise, but I said at the end, there's like the husband and wife weren't getting along because all these things were happening in the house that shouldn't have been happening, and then John LaRoquette decided to chase all of his guests out of the house with a skill saw. And then he's chasing the people out, and then he runs out of cord, and the cord comes out of the thing, and the saw stops, and he's all confused, like, uh-oh, I no longer have a weapon.
Yeah, I'm screwed.
And then the saw turns back on. He turns around, and his wife, Chris Yalley, has like 100 feet of extension cord. And so I kind of
tied that into
you putting it in sports mode. You're giving me just a little bit more.
I'm always there for you, support you.
That's funny stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just thought I would put that in there, that Jasmine's extremely supportive of my weird things, like wanting to drive fast up a really dangerous highway.
That's because I trust you.
You trust me. I'm not a bad driver.
No, you're an excellent driver.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I only know a couple of excellent drivers besides myself.
Well, you put a trailer. well, you put a trailer on the back, and I think I'm pretty good.
Oh, you can drive anything big. Yeah. I'm not big, so I'm tiny.
Yeah.
I'm talking about vehicles.
Yes, I understand. Yeah, but I don't know. And then another cool thing is your parents, they have 3 German short hair pointers, and they have one, her name is Negra, and
she has the whole title I just learned the other day.
Oh, really? Oh.
It's Negra something in Spanish. It's like this whole title, and I'm like, let's just stick with Negra Mom.
Let's thought this out. But she's on her 3rd litter. This is her last litter. You know, they don't want to overdo it on her.
So cute.
They're so cute. They're adorable.
So my dad and mom are breeders for German short hair pointers.
Yeah.
Beautiful dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really pretty. They really are. They're really... A Negra is so well-mannered.
She's such a good dog. She was like my Coco.
Yeah, she came up to me and she like jumped up on my chest and she
greeted you right away. She was like, missed you.
She came straight over to me.
Because we hadn't seen her for like a week.
I'm sorry.
She loves Brian more.
Yeah.
That's
well, I just have snacks.
Yeah. Oh, that's not why.
Yeah, I think that is.
She loves you more than me now. That's okay.
So I think that's pretty neat. Yeah. You know,
it's something my dad really enjoys because it's his dog, Negra.
Yeah.
He loves Negra.
But she loves him. He said this is her last one.
Yeah.
You know, 3's enough. They don't want to overdo it.
Yeah. She looks like she's done. Like she's.
She's pretty tired.
Yeah. She's young, but this is their 3rd year in a row. Third season.
Yeah, so they'll have 10 years of. She'll have a good 10 years ahead of her where she doesn't have to do that anymore, and she gets to just enjoy being a dog.
Being a dog, yeah.
Yeah.
They did it at the right time, while she was younger.
Yeah. But okay, so Vermilion. Would you like to start, or do you want me to start on it?
You can start on it because you researched the winemaker a little bit more than me.
Yeah, so Vermilion was the winemaker for this is a young lady named Helen Kiplinger. And she graduated, well, it says she entered the MS program at UC Davis. I don't know if she graduated. I'm sure she did. She put it in there, but I'm not saying she graduated in there, but she did enter the program, the MS program, the Masters of Science in Enology at UC Davis, which is a lot of the arborists and a lot of the horticulturists that I work with either went to Cal Poly or went to UC Davis. So UC Davis is a huge
highly recognized school for enology and horticulture, agriculture.
Yeah, and the pesticide program that we run out here, we run an integrated pesticide management program, and all that is derived from UC Davis. They created this program where you try to use, instead of using chemicals, we try to use like if there's a bunch of aphids in a garden, you try to plant either garlic or you try to introduce ladybugs into the area. And so she went to UC Davis, and she worked with a multiple of winemakers in the 2003-2004 era. I think that's right.
She started making wine in 2004.
Yeah. Including, you called him Michel Roland?
Michel Roland.
He's from Bordeaux.
He's from Bordeaux. And what's his, you said, which winery does he come from?
Well, he's the second top wine consultant in the world. He was born in Libournais, which is in Bordeaux, France, and he is a Bordeaux-based enologist. And he's set apart from the European side where he comes from all the consultancies he does outside of France. Mm-hmm. So he holds the title of cellmaster, winemaker, enologist, and he is a consultant around in France for about 80 different estates throughout France. And out of Europe, he advises more than 150 wineries in 13 countries. So
that's impressive.
He makes a few different wines, and some get very expensive, but he also has very economical wines. You and I, not too long ago, drank one of his $20 wines out of a wine he makes from Argentina, and it's called Clos de los Siete, and it's a blend, a Malbec blend, and it's highly aromatic. It's very smooth tannins and acidity. It's a stunning bottle for $20.
So she studied with him. She also lived in France for a couple of years, and her favorite valley that was up on her website was Rhone, was one of her most favorite valleys, to visit. Her and her husband would visit that area.
Her husband is who again?
A DJ. I know it's DJ. I am so sorry. I didn't write it down.
You said, I think it was Warner. DJ Warner?
Yeah, it's DJ Warner. Okay. Man, you got a good memory. I don't care what
I was thinking of Warner Brothers when you told me to remember.
Okay. Yeah. So DJ Warner,
what's gonna help me remember?
Her husband, would go and visit with her, and they would go and adventure the countryside in Rhone, one of her favorites. And just so happens that Vermilion is a Rhone-like wine because the mix is.
So we did some research on it, but it's not exactly clear. We do know that the main grapes, the base or foundation of the 2017 blend, is Grenache, Syrah, and Mauvaudier, and there's also a touch of Cournoy. But you looked up another site, and it said that there could be Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, there could be Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't know if they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, so it's not. So in other words, the 2017, she didn't state exactly what she used, but we do know that for sure she has the three main grapes that are of the Rhone Valley, the Côte de Rhone, which are a GSM. It's a traditional grapes of the three, Grenache, Syrah, and Mauvaudier. So that's the basis of the Vermilion 2017, and then she added grapes from her single vineyard estate, Kiplinger wines. She added some of those grapes into the Vermilion. Because she did that, they call this the brainchild of her and her husband. Mm-hmm. This wine is the brainchild of the creation of that, and it's the second. Vermilion started as a second wine to Helen's flagship label, like I just brought out, which is Kiplinger Wines. In turn, Vermilion, because of using her single varietal estate grapes, was able to make Vermilion develop into this incredible valued wine with an expressive character. So now, because of that, the wine has its own identity and it has a huge following.
No, she's doing very well. She really is. I was looking at her website. And she's got some really good wines up there. Mm-hmm. She really does. But a lot of them are based on Grenache.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what makes this blend so unique, because she took her single vineyard grapes, which are high quality, putting them into this affordable, economical. I mean, she calls it that. It is a $43 to $45 wine. Mm-hmm. But for a Côte de Rhone style or a GSM, they can get pretty high, like Austin Hope, Eric Jensen out of Paso Robles. Their GSMs are highly priced. I mean, they're $70, $80 like for a GSM. Mm-hmm. She has hers for $43, $44.
Yeah, $43. There are some websites too.
Like $20, $25 less than big time winemakers. Again, not just like her, but Austin Hope and Eric Jensen. So they make. Eric Jensen just came out with some wines, new ones that are straight single varietals. So they're a little bit more pricier, but they're also like Mourvedre, Côte d'Aron. He has some Tempranillo now, which we're going to talk about in the Sierra Foothills, the 69%, the grapes that are grown in that area. And Tempranillo is one of the other varietals that are of a higher percentage of 34% of grapes that are grown there that are, they consider other reds. They're not, they put it in that category. They don't like name them because they're a compilation of multiple red grape varietals that they put all into like this one percentage.
Yeah, so I know in the 2014 they used 55% of Grenache, 22% of Mourvedre, 18% Syrah, and then 5% of Petite Syrah. So that's what they used in 2014. She probably changed it every year because it seems like she likes to scour the countryside for, at least in California, for specific wineries where the tastes are, where she tries to find the taste that she likes. And she probably takes it from her vineyard and then multiple other vineyards. 3 vineyards that I know for sure she's used is Swasboro winery, which they're known for their Grenache, and they're out of the Sierra Foothills. The Rorick Heritage Vineyards, they're also out of the Sierra Foothills. And then Mounts Vineyard, and that's out of the Sonoma Dry Creek Valley. I know she's used them in the past. I'm not sure if she's using them for the 2017 blend. You know, these are very high quality wineries, and 3 of the wineries are really good. And then I have some. Before we get away from the wine, did we want to go over the tasting notes or anything?
Yeah. So I wanted to bring out the aromas, the taste, and the finish of Vermilion. So the aromatics that when we opened it up, we decanted it. Do you remember how long? It was a while.
It was a half an hour at least. Half an hour to an hour.
Yeah, by the time we ate dinner, it was like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was like 45 minutes.
Maybe
yeah.
an hour. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the aromatics, after the 30 minutes, right, we poured it in the glass, and then that's when we started to smell it from what I remember.
Yeah,
okay.
It was
so
like a grape juice when it first came out.
Yeah, well, you smelled it when you first opened it,
yeah.
But I think I smelled it later.
Because I'm spoiled.
Yeah. So the aromatics were sweet and like a sweet, smoky taffy. This is what I got. You can tell me what you got. The spices were baking spices or brown spices. So you get like cardamom, nutmeg, but I also got notes of sweet paprika through the nose and celery seed. Red apple on the finish with a fresh spring meadow. So it was like clean on the finish. It was like a clean ending. Like your palate was left with an aftertaste of freshness. Mm-hmm. And then the taste was of ripened red fruit, pomegranate seeds, and then came in following herbaceous tarragon, sage, celery seed, pink peppercorns. Through mid of palate, I got a balanced acidity with skins of black cherry. You highlighted a burnt apple with mesquite char or fire.
Yes.
And then on the finish, we both agreed that there was earthy tobacco with a slate or granite on the conclusion on the palate. Mm-hmm. And then the finish was the texture that I got was like a gritty tannin. All flavors were like planting on the tongue. Like we were both recognizing how it was the front of the palate.
Yeah.
So it was like the flavor was just like cementing on the front of the tongue. And then you got I noticed throughout, I thought it was a very balanced acidity from start, mid, and finish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know if you got that, but on the finish.
Yeah. I got a little bit higher acidity, but it wasn't overbalanced. It wasn't more toward the acidic side. Mm-hmm. But I think if it would have been any more toward the fruity side, it would have thrown it off.
Yeah.
So because it was a, I don't want to, to me, it was a thick wine. It was oily.
Oh, it was oily, yes.
Yeah.
The 2016 Vermilion, speaking of that, different raters, one of them was saying It was meaty in texture, but like you said, the 2017, I felt like it was oily. So when I noticed you grabbing, you were putting over white paper, which is something that we teach in our classes when we're educating. And so on a white canvas, you're looking at the wine and the color density. You're looking at the thickness of the wine, and you could see the oil. So it wasn't meaty. It can taste meaty, but the 2017 was more like oily, so it did have a density like that. Like you're tasting more of a buttery. It's almost like a malolactic taste that you get out of a Chardonnay, but red wines can have that as well, because there's also malolactic fermentation that goes that occurs in a red wine because of barrel fermentation with oak. I got that too.
Yeah. So, and as far as my smell, when I first opened it and poured it into the decanter, it smelled like pure grape juice originally. Then I went back to it.
And that's the smell of a younger Napa Valley, Sonoma, AVA taste.
Well, I mean, when you open up a French wine, you smell socks. Like
it's
a
totally
dirty socks.
different. The terroirs,
so, just because it smells that way doesn't mean it's gonna taste that way. You know, so
very true.
So I opened it up. It was a grape juice, but as soon as I let it sit for about 15 minutes, I went over to it, and the aroma was. I want to drink it like out of the decanter. It smells so good.
You're like, come to me.
It did change. I wanted a straw. Just get out of a straw.
I would never let you do that.
But there's a snort there. But yeah, I smelled the burnt apple that you were talking about. It was like a burnt apple, but over mesquite fire.
It's like our friend who makes those nachos, and he throws in the mesquite chips
at
the end, and then he cooks his nachos over the barbecue.
Yes.
And it's that type, because your brain is remembering that taste.
6-layer nacho. Yeah.
So the mesquite charring taste, that's what you got out of this wine. Yeah. So it's very this wine is very distinctive, like on its taste. Like it's not it's by no means another just typical red blend that has fruit notes and low acidity, and it has a lot of character to it.
Yeah, it does.
So I think for the price, it's a good price. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about the food pairing before we move on out of the tasting.
Yeah.
So we made a pesto chicken with basil homemade pizza, and the ingredients were chicken. Thighs. We use chicken thighs because it's higher in iron. It's recommended for people who have low blood pressure and things like that. You get more nutrients out of it. So we use chicken thighs instead of chicken breast more often in our cooking. So we had that, and we had shallots, red bell pepper, mushrooms, pesto, which was the sauce we used for the pizza, and then mozzarella cheese. And we put fresh basil in there as well.
Yeah,
so do you want
fresh basil leaves, like the whole leaf?
Yeah, fresh leaf.
Whole leaf on it,
Fresh basil herbs. And then let's talk about. So I cooked the chicken, but I just cooked it in olive oil. I didn't add salt and pepper. I thought that the pesto sauce would be enough flavor. So we took out the chicken after we browned it in the pan, and then you cooked You want to talk about what you sautéed?
Yeah, I sautéed the red peppers, the shallots, and the mushrooms. I put the red peppers in first, let those tone down, and then I threw the mushrooms in, and then I put the shallots in at the very, very end, because I don't want to overcook the shallots, because you want a little bit of flavor in there.
But shallots you cook last because they cook fast.
Yeah.
And you don't want to burn them, like you said.
And then I threw the chicken in for just like 3 minutes or 2 minutes, just to get some of the flavoring from the peppers and the mushrooms and the shallots, and get it into the chicken.
You returned it to the pan to heat everything through. And then we pre-baked the pizza dough at 500.
Yeah.
We preheated the stone first.
Yeah.
At 500. We took it out after how many minutes?
Well, you preheat the oven with the stone inside, and once your oven hits 500 degrees, your stone's ready. You take the stone out, you put you got the dough ready, and then we put the dough in for, I think, 8 to 10 minutes.
At 500 degrees.
Yeah, at 500. Then when we put everything in there, we turned it down to 450 because we felt like it was a little bit too hot.
Yeah.
We took out the pizza. We built our pizza, and
All the
then we
ingredients,
returned it to the oven at 450 for 12 minutes, right?
Yeah, it was between 10 and 12 minutes.
And it came out perfect.
Oh, it was
so good.
It was so good. The only thing that I was talking to Jasmine about is usually Jasmine makes her own pesto, but for time, we used a pesto from another store. I'm not going to say the name of the store. And it wasn't as flavorful as it normally is. It didn't hold its flavor through the heat.
It didn't have enough salt, and the garlic wasn't. There wasn't a lot of garlic in the pesto, so it wasn't really a strong pesto. And we bought this brand before, and it has been stronger. It normally has a lot of flavor. So I didn't think twice about doctoring it up. But next time we'll make our own pesto.
So we got that. So we got our food pairing was pasta. And it went really well with it. It really did. The everything. The pizza was perfect. Yeah, sorry.
I said pasta.
Oh, I said pasta.
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah, we're making. We shot for pasta earlier. Yeah. So.
We're doing something else tonight, which we'll talk to you about next week.
Yeah. No hints.
No hints.
It's soup.
Hey. Spoilers.
I'll cut it out. Yeah.
Doctor Who fans. Spoilers. Verb song.
So one of the places that this wine was from the Sierra Foothills. Yeah, and I know Jasmine has some notes. I have a few notes. They're just basic notes. Elevation that a lot of the vineyards are planted at are in between 200 feet and 3,000 feet in elevation above sea level. So this area that it's in, the county it's in, is right up above Onya County, which is the county that has a Death Valley. So Death Valley is probably one of the hottest places on Earth, 130, 140 degrees sometimes. You know, depending on when you're there and if you're taking the temperature in the shade or out in the sun. So this is not too far away. This is just a couple hundred miles away from Death Valley. And then it's hot. So Sierra Foothills,
high altitude.
High altitude.
It's super hot.
Yeah, it's warm.
For a high altitude is what I'm saying. It's hot.
Yeah. So it's temps should go between 80 and 93 degrees under 3,000 foot. I'm sorry, under 4,500 foot in elevation. The temperatures run between 80 and 93 degrees in the summer. And then your low temps can go down to 33 degrees, 32 degrees, sometimes 20 degrees. But the temps are all over the place. And so when I saw how they use the east banks and the west banks, depending on what type of grape they're putting down, so they can decide whether it can take morning sun or evening sun, was very interesting when it came to Sierra Foothills. Sierra Foothills can't contain any grapes that can handle hot weather. So I think a majority of the Pinot Noirs, they can't handle it, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Cooler weather.
Yeah, they need the cooler weather.
Much cooler weather.
The upside to the Sierra Foothills is that your rainfall is about 30 inches a year, but we have to remember that you're on a mountain. So you're on a mountain and it's made of rock, so your water's going to go down. It's not going to stay. Down. So, you talk about the 18 inches you get, I think, in Napa Valley, 18 to 25 inches, but the 30 inches that you get here are necessary because of the type of soil that you're on top of. And did you want to go over soil, or do you want me to go over my stuff that I found?
You can go over your stuff.
Okay. All right. She's the boss. I'm just here. All right. Things that I found interesting at the Sierra Foothills is Sierra Foothills consists of two major elements, and that's limestone, and it has what's called a schist layer, SCHIST, a schist layer. And schist layers, so I'm going to concentrate on the schist layer because everyone knows what limestone is. Limestone is a breakdown of pretty much all fossils, whether it be plant-based or whether it be animal-based, and it's condensed into a thick material over time, and then now it's considered a rock, but it's very soft rock. But it does hold water, blah, blah, blah. The schist layer, two mineral constituents. So two mineral constituents, biotite and a muscovite. And a biotite is kind of, I don't want to say it's a useless material, but it's fast to break down. And a biotite is what scientists use to determine the age of a rock. So the breakdown of the rock, they can take the age of the rock. They know how old the rock is through biotite. Now, a muscovite is really important because it's primarily a potassium. So in the schist layer, there's this huge resource, and that's a potassium. And potassium is considered a macronutrient. N, P, and K, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. So in all fertilizers that are sent out, your three basic nutrients are nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Those are the three main elements other than oxygen and carbon dioxide and water. The three main nutrients that are needed for plants to grow properly. And what a potassium provides for a plant is, if it is a flowering plant, which almost all plants are, it provides higher yields of flowers. It creates a more drought-resistant plant. It grows a little bit faster. And the most important thing about potassium is it helps fight off diseases and any type, and it helps resist any pests. So potassium is a very important nutrient, especially for
Or rocky soil.
Yeah, rocky soil, or farmers who are trying to go biodynamic because they can't use pesticides.
Oh,
So the higher potassium that's in your soil, not too high, but the higher potassium that's in your soil, the better off you're going to be, because the plant is able to fight off more diseases and pests than other plants are normally able to do without so much potassium. I don't know. I never looked up schist layer before, so I saw that it was in there, and I'm like, well, this is interesting. I'll bring this out.
Yeah, it's right. It's really important to the success of this area.
And the soil, that it helps the listeners understand the soil and the layers behind it, and what you said, that the potassium aids in producing, helping the soil to be a bit faster, because normally it's going to be slow because it's a rocky, tenacious soil, and the grapevine is going to struggle. The roots have to go deeper, way down, to get nutrients and water to bring up what is needed to produce the grapes.
Well, and a majority of the water that comes through the rocks, all it's going to do is it's going to flush all nutrients, and it's going to flush,
Well, there's very little nutrients in this soil.
Yeah.
So potassium is a key to this particular soil.
Yeah.
If it didn't have the potassium, it would struggle even more viticulturally, because I don't know what it would produce if it didn't even have potassium, because it doesn't have a lot of nutrients that is easily attained for the type of soil that this is.
Yeah. So that's, as far as what I found in the Sierra Foothills. I know Jasmine has more. So, what do you got?
The Sierra Foothills wine region was established. The AVA was established in 1987, but I'm going to talk about a bit of the history before that. So, in 1848, the discovery of gold was found near Sutter Mill in El Dorado County, and this was the beginning of the gold rush. And this was when settlers came from southern Europe, and they quickly started establishing vineyards, because that's what they did in Europe, and they brought it here to California. So the supply of wine was very accessible to everybody at that time in 1848. By the 1860s, the Sierra Foothill wine industry was booming. So between 1848 to 1860. What happened, though, after that was the Great Depression followed. It ended the gold rush, and by 1920, prohibition ensued and terminated whatever was left. But fortunately, the vineyards throughout the region were abandoned. They weren't ripped out or removed. They were still there. So the veterans, these are people persons who cultivate grapes for winemaking, they began exploring the region, and they were looking for potential. and this was in the 1970s. So they were looking for potential of what they could grow from the existing vineyards that they came across. And what they discovered was old vines. So there was tons of old vines they scouted throughout, and an old vine is more than 25 years old. So normally it's like a 35-year-old plus vine, greater than 50 years old. So that's considered an old vine. And what's the highlight or the key factor of an old vine is that it produces extremely low yields, but it produces high quality, like superb high quality grapes. And particularly they found that it was a Zinfandel grape. This Zinfandel grape is the king of this area. It is 34% of the grapes were percentages grown there. So the oldest one that they came across was 140 years old, and it's in a vineyard called Grand Pear Vineyard in California, which is in Shenandoah, California, which is one of the sub-counties within the Sierra Foothills wine region. So the top varietals out of the Sierra Foothills are Syrah, Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Sangiovese, the Italian Barbera. There is a white grape that's called Viognier, which is a very small percentage. It's 3% that they grow. Then there's also 2 Rhone grape varietals that grow there, which are Roussanne and Mourvedre. And then there is a small, tiny bit of Sauvignon Blanc. Because of the high acidity, it's able to grow into this type of terroir. So, like you mentioned earlier, there's very few white grape varietals, which are in this list. There's only Viognier and Sauvignon Blanc, but the rest are reds. So, but there are just a little bit. There's just a few of the white grape varietals. The area is very vast in the Sierra Foothills because it covers 2.6 million acres, which is converted from 1.5 hectares. And so if you turn that into acres, it's 2.6 million. So it starts from the Mariposa County, which is the southern end, and it goes to Yuba County, which is the northern end, which you talked about the elevation and how it's very close to Death Valley. So that's why it consists of such a high temperature. And it's comprised of a very diverse quilt of terroirs because of where it sits. So the rocky soils that Brian was talking about earlier have a low fertility. So what this means is that it's lacking nutrients. There can be problems with soil acidity, which is associated with altoxicity, which limits water and nutrients to get to the plant. So agriculturally, it's challenging in the production of the fruit that it makes. So to a viticulturalist, it's going to be a terroir that is going to fight them, but in the end result, because it's a challenging terroir with slower yield, which means it takes longer for the grape to develop. It takes longer time, but what they're rewarded with in the end is a very high quality, very intense, concentrated, small yield, which is packed with flavor. So the result is a high quality wine. So what happens is the vines are forced to dig down deep in the roots, and they have to really grow deep to get the water and nutrients, which is what you were talking about earlier. And so this helps the crops to cultivate or establish their full yield potential. So when something is challenging, it's not always a bad thing, because it actually, in the end, it's just something you have to, if you understand it, you just have to work harder at understanding. But once you know what you're working with, along with your desire to achieve what you know the potential is, like those veterans who were scouting in the 1970s and they saw the potential. So they grabbed hold of it, and this is what they got out of it. So the location of it is also essential to its success, because it's inland of the Sierra Foothills. So it consists of warmer days with cooler nights, and this is caused by alpine winds that blow down from the slopes of the Sierra Nevada. And so because they flow in from the Sierra Nevada mountains, the evenings create a cool evening, which creates what's called a diurnal temperature variation. So this is experienced across the whole entire region, and it creates an environment in which the grapes grow again more slowly, developing more of an intense flavor. So the slow growth actually produces more flavor with more depthfulness and aromatics that do not come at the expense of acidity. And for just a breakdown of the diurnal temperature variation, what that means is it's a high and low temperature that occurs during the same day. So that's what creates a diurnal temperature. So again, you have warmer sunny days and then the cool nights, and then that creates that diurnal temperature variation. The high elevation, the fact that it struggles for the nutrients, and then the winds that go through that area creating that diurnal temperature make the success of this area. The production of grape blend is, I want to talk about the percentages, and then this is going to be just kind of my wrap up on this, but the Zinfandel grown in this area of Sierra Foothill is 39%. Then 34% is other grapes, which they don't mention all of them, but some of them we research for Tempranillo and Grenache, and Mourvedre and Quino, and so there's a few of those. There's also Cabernet Sauvignon, which is 5%. They grow Barbera, which is a 6% percentage. They have what's called a rare red blend. They don't state what it is, but rare red blend is 6% that they grow. Syrah 4%, Petite Syrah 4%, which is also called Durif, after the scientist who discovered the Petite Syrah. And then there's Viognier, which is at 3%. So those are the percentages of the Sierra Foothill AVA grape varietals. And then the subregions of this area, there's 11, I believe. So there's Amador County, Calaveras County, California, Shenandoah Valley, which is very well known, Amador County as well. El Dorado County, there is Fiddleton, Fairplay, again, Mariposa County, Nevada County, North Yuba, Placer County, and Tulum County. So those are the sub-regions within the AVA region of the Sierra Foothills.
Yeah, going back to a note on slow growing vines. There's nothing that an arborist loves more than a slow growing tree, because you know that tree's going to last for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's going to be much stronger, and so the same thing goes in the grapes.
And this one, this area highlights that it is a slower growing region because of the challenge of the terroir.
Yeah. So it's like
but you
get some delicious grapes. It
just
takes a bit longer.
You do. Mm-hmm. So I just compare it. Out here in the valley, we have fast-growing trees like Palo Verdes, and they have like a 30 to 60-year lifespan. And then you have oaks that we can plant out here, and they have a 200 to 1,000-year lifespan. Mm-hmm. And oaks just grow slower.
And it's hot out here.
It's hot out here. Yeah, it's very challenging. But
surprisingly,
you know, like oaks only have to be pruned every 3 years, and when it comes to the Palo Verdes, they have to be pruned at least once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. You know, and depending how they're pruned is how long they're going to last. So, yeah, slower growing plant material is usually better. Mm-hmm. It is. I know people want to, like, they can't wait for the first fruiting, whatever, but sometimes slower is better.
It's true.
Yeah, it is true. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's our take on the Vermilion 2017. Again, this is made by Helen Kiplinger. We will keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
Because this is our first time covering her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We like learning about her and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were very impressed that she worked with the specific winemaker?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my shoulder on.
Yeah.
I would myself love to one day work with him, and the fact that she got to work with him is pretty amazing.
So.
Yeah. All right. So this is Bryan and Jasmine, wine from on the vine to the road tasted, and really appreciate anybody who's listening. And you got anything else to add?
Just to go out and try a bottle of this Vermilion.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'm not sure where you can find it. We went into a couple of places and we only found it in one out here in the desert, but we're kind of limited.
Yeah, there's only like 3 or 4 shops out here.
Yeah. So you got to go to like maybe a bigger, larger store
Yeah, to
find it.
Yeah, a Vermilion.
Not a local store. Because we did go to the desert wine shop. We went there for the first time.
Yeah.
That was really nice. It was really quite a selection they had there for locals, like locally owned. Well, actually, is it locally owned?
Well, it's managed locally. The person who owns it lives up in Canada for some of the year and then lives here, called them Snowbirds. So she's invested in this thing out here, but I think the sommelier that she uses to buy her wine is local.
Yeah, he's local.
And so I'm going to say it's a local shop. It is.
It's pretty neat when you find those shops.
Yeah.
The food special.
Yeah.
So we have everything.
Yeah.
We found some really good wine that we haven't tried yet, so
And we'll talk more about that shop
later
in our next episode. Yeah.
This was episode 22.
Yeah, 22.
Vermilion 2017 Red Blend.
Yeah.
It was a highly rated wine also.
It is. It's
highly rated.
91 or 92%.
It has variations, but it's between 91 and 94.
Is
I
it?
believe.
Okay.
It
All right.
depends who's rating it.
Yeah. It was good. So again, wine from on the vine to the road tasted. Have a good time.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye bye.